Hi, I'm Harshita Chandak. I'm a final year student at SRCC pursuing BCom honors. So the last 2 years of college have been very happening for me. But if I am to sum it up in my introduction, I would say that I headed the finance and strategy department of the placement cell in my second year. In my first year, I did some societies here and there, nothing very major, and a couple of internships like every other SR kid. So I think that is it about me. So I chose an MBA because I think I was very sure from second year onwards that this is something that I want to do. And what is the process for an MBA? So you sit for CAT, which happens in November every year, the last Sunday of November. It's the exam which applies for all common IIMs. If you're targeting certain other schools also, there are certain different exams for that. For example, you have ZAT for XLRI, you have SNAP, you have NMAT. So it depends on the target B schools, but CAT is the most major examination which all aspirants go for. Post CAT, once you get your results in December, you start getting interview calls in January, and from there on, your interview processes begin. So January, February, March, April, it takes approximately 4 months for all your interviews to get over, and in May you start receiving the results. So this is briefly what the process looks like. So the ideal timeline for preparation of CAT, there is no ideal time as such. It actually depends on your base, your aptitude so far. So for me, I started August onwards, post my summer internship was over. So I approximately devoted 4 months to the entire process, August to November. And I feel that I did not have to put in a lot of efforts. I have seen friends studying for 1 year, 1.5 years, people start in second year onwards also. But I personally felt that I was able to identify that which areas are my core strengths and what are the areas I need to exactly focus upon. So that really helped me. So I think basis your understanding of your profile, you can do it in 4 months, 6 months, 1 year. So there is no perfect time as such for the same. So when we talk about self-preparation versus educational institutes, I think if you are going for a tuition like Time, CL, IMS, the most common ones, it helps you be on a certain trajectory. I mean, you are very disciplined, you know what to cover, how to cover, by when to cover. So you have a very good roadmap in your hand. And I would suggest that if you are someone who is very new to the entire process, you go for a tuition. But for me, the case was that I had very few months in hand. I did not have time to take an entire 7-8 months of coaching. So I went for self-preparation. But I did face some difficulties during the process. I was not able to identify all the right resources. So I had to talk to a lot of people, take a lot of guidance. But eventually, it all made sense for me. But if you think that you can be very disciplined on your own, you don't need a constant badgering on your head, then I think you can go ahead with self-preparation as well. So coming to what resources I used and how was my preparation strategy exactly, considering I self-prepped. So first key is identifying which sections are strong. So I personally felt that for me, VARC came very intuitively. I do not know how it was for me. It may be due to my schooling from ISC, or it may be due to certain childhood habits. But all in all, it was very strong for me. I did not have to pay a lot of attention to that section. But if you are someone who thinks that it does not come that intuitively to you, then I would suggest you go ahead with reading editorials from newspapers like Hindu, or maybe you look at articles from HBR or Aeon. So those things really help you increase your speed, increase your comprehension power, and that is exactly what helps you in the actual exam. And coming to the next section, DILR. So for DILR, I used a lot of YouTube videos to prepare. So firstly, I started with Arun Sharma's DILR book, but I felt that the questions in that were not of the level which is actually asked in CAT. So my entire strategy was to give as many sectionals as possible for DILR, because that was the only forum from where I could practice. So YouTube videos to build my basics, to get into the habit of solving sets, and then going ahead with sectionals. So YouTube videos very commonly, find any channel. I used to use Rodha, Elite's Grid, An Academy, all of these very common channels. Make sure that you are able to solve a set, you're giving a lot of time and attention to solving that set, you're not giving up in the process. It's extremely fine if you are taking 20-30 minutes to solve a set on your day 1, because from day 1 to day 100 you will feel an improvement. Coming to cons, primarily I used Arun Sharma, very good book for me personally. So I used to solve LOD 1 and LOD 2 questions. I never solved LOD 3 because I had heard people saying that this does not come in actual CAT. So, and it's extremely difficult. So I did not want to break my confidence. I stick to LOD 2 and I covered almost all the chapters. Formulas again came very naturally to me. I did not have to spend a lot of time in learning. The only difficult part was the application of those formulas in sums. So as I went ahead with the journey, I think mocks and sectionals helped a lot. Coming to when you should give mocks, how you should give mocks. So a lot of people do this, that once they finish the syllabus, then they go ahead with giving mocks. I did not have that kind of time to wait till I finish the syllabus and then start giving mocks. So I started my preparation and my sectionals almost simultaneously. Almost 1 month into the preparation, I started giving mocks. Initially, I did not give mocks very frequently. I only gave mocks, let's say once a week. Yeah, once a week was the average. And then I increased the frequency to twice a week, thrice a week. Before CAT, I was giving every day a mock in the actual time slot. So I was in slot 1 of CAT. So 8 to 10 was my exam timing. So every day I used to wake up, sit in front of my laptop, give a mock at 8 a.m. And then I think that really helped me get into the flow of things for the actual exam, because in the actual exam you have to be able to activate your brain at that very point in which you are sitting for the paper. So 8 to 10 a.m. for me was a very sleepy time. I am not an early riser. So I think that was a very difficult thing to catch on. But ultimately, practicing in that particular slot once the admit card was released, 2 weeks after the admit card was released. So I think that really helped. So analyzing mocks, I think, I forgot to say this, but analyzing mocks is more important than just giving mocks. Because if you're not analyzing your mocks, you never know what is going wrong. You never know what are your key strengths, key weaknesses. So one more thing, before you delve into the preparation for CAT, into this journey, give a mock. I know you will say that you know nothing and what is the point of a mock. I said the same thing to my seniors who advised me this, but I think it really helped. That one mock, irrespective of how bad you score or how good you score, do not let that get into your head. The only thing that you need to see from that mock is which are your good sections and which are your bad sections. And once you get into the rhythm of things, you will feel that analyzing mocks becomes easier and easier. So once you give a mock, it is not required to be done immediately. You can do it after a 2-3 hour break, but do it before you give the next mock, honestly. If you're giving one mock once in a week, then maybe if you're giving a mock on Saturday, make sure to analyze it on Monday and then only give a mock on next Saturday. So once you sit to analyze a mock, see which questions went wrong, see what could you have done. So I honestly tried to do something like break it into 3 categories, that this was extremely difficult, unachievable for me, or this was doable but I think I made some silly mistake, or this was doable and I did it correctly, but the approach could be changed and it could have been made better. I took maybe 5 minutes to solve it, but could have been done in 3 minutes. So once you make these categories for yourself, very open to interpretation the way you think the categories work for you, make these categories, make notes of things that you are doing wrong. If you're making a very basic silly mistake in, let's say, in 2 out of 5 questions, then note that and read that mistake before CAT, so your mind knows to not make that mistake in CAT. So I always completely used to forget to read that VRC's upper question, that it's not arrange these in order. So there are 5 sentences, you have to arrange it in a particular order. I always used to miss that, and I used to think that I did not used to differentiate between whether it's asking me to arrange or it's asking me to identify the odd one out. So I think this was a mistake which I made until my last mock also, but I knew to not make it in CAT actual day, because on the day of CAT I read this and I was very sure that I don't want to do this mistake. So once you make a list of those things, it really helps you, because 4, 5, 6 months you will not remember what you were doing right, what you were doing wrong. So all of these small little things help you perform well and confidently on the actual day. So I think when it comes to profile, there are certain things that you can do which give you talking points in the interview. So this is what I felt from my experiences. If I am talking about a position of responsibility or an internship, it gives a view that all that I have done in my college is not just prepare for CAT. It has been a very holistic development so far. So that ways, as long as you are doing something meaningful, which you think you can talk about in the interviews, which will give the interviewer an impression that you know what you're talking about, and this might add some value which you bring to an MBA class, then I think it really helps. So I will talk about why I chose to do an MBA as a fresher. There were a couple of reasons for that. So the first one being that I felt that as a fresher, I will be in the academic rigor or the flow of things to be able to perform better in a classroom like setup again. So I did not want to break that rhythm by going and doing a job. So that was the primary reason. Apart from that, I also felt that all the exposure that I had through my undergraduate experience at SRCC, it genuinely helped me. So I knew what corporate looked like from the 2 internships that I did. I knew what kind of PORs and what kind of responsibilities you actually can expect when you go into a B school. I knew the concept of diversity. So I think all of these things helped me build my understanding of an MBA a little prior also. Apart from this, another reason I think was that I wanted to do an MBA as early as possible because I feel that it really puts you on a fast track in your career. So if I am able to complete my MBA at 23, it just makes a lot of sense for me because of the goals that I have in mind for my future. Addressing the next part, that does WorkX help in securing admissions? So I will not lie, WorkX does make your profile stronger and you will require the less amount of marks or a lower percentile to get the same calls as compared to a fresher. So I think that really helps. You lose out on a lot of WorkX points in certain B schools. For example, IIM Bangalore had a 10% weightage to WorkX in their final selection as well. I was extremely scared that will I make the cut or not. But if you make the cut as a fresher, then I think that is something really amazing, and the benefits or the pros will genuinely outweigh the cons. So there is no harm in going for a WorkX and then doing an MBA because a lot of people feel that it is better for them. So it is not about saying that fresher versus WorkX may fresher is better, but the overall concept is that what you feel is right for you, go ahead with that plan. There is no one size that fits all concept in this. So apart from academics and internships, I think I would want to stress upon the qualitative factors that an IIM interviewer would look for. So for example, the first thing is confidence. They want you to be extremely confident. So there's a difference between being confident and being arrogant. Don't be arrogant because they hate that, honestly, from my experience. So once you are confident, it talks a lot about your overall approach to life, honestly. So if you are going into an IIM Ahmedabad interview, you will be nervous. If you're not nervous, then you're doing something wrong. So you will be nervous, but the key is to hide that nervousness and show from the outside that you're an extremely confident person and you can make it through. The second point I feel is they are checking your ability to not crack under pressure. So throughout the interview, you will feel that they're not listening to you, they're interrupting you, they are purposefully trying to break you, but they are just trying to check how you react to those kind of situations, because 2 years of B school will be exactly that. A lot of pressure, a lot of people on your head, and a lot of difficult instances overall. So it matters if you can or cannot make through those 2 years. And the last point I feel is your general awareness. So what happens is, in these interviews, when you are going as a fresher or even as a person who has work experience, what happens is we often focus ourselves so much on CAT preparation that we do not know the world beyond CAT. We do not know the world beyond those 66 questions. So the key is to be very aware of what's going on, because they can very well shoot some questions on current affairs. For example, whatever was trending in these last 3-4 months, all the geopolitical crisis, what is going on in the markets. Since I had a VC internship, they asked me a lot of questions on what is going on in the VC ecosystem. Do you think VCs are good for India or not? These kind of questions. So very general basic questions which can be related to your domain or can be related to the world overall as well. Okay, so IIMs versus private P schools. I did not apply to any of the private P schools, but I have a very fair understanding of what is the difference. So I feel that with IIMs, you get the brand name. So till the point you are considering old IIMs, ABC, LKI, versus any of the private B schools like SPJN, MDI, NMIMS, you will feel that the brand for some people matters a lot. So again, all of these pointers are very, very subjective. This is not written in black and white anywhere. So this is what I felt during my journey, that the brand of IIM helps a lot. Apart from that, I often feel that currently I'm not really sure of whether I want to stay in India or I want to go abroad after 5, 7, 10 years. I'm not really sure. I want to use the next years to be able to discover myself and the opportunities that lie out there. So this thing was always in my mind, that if I'm going outside India and if I'm talking to anyone about my education, I want them to know where I come from. So I can be very sure that people would know what an IIM is, because an IIM has been in existence since the last 60 years now. But I cannot be so sure that people would know the quality or the kind of rigor that it also requires to get into SPJN, NM or MDI for that matter. So all I'm trying to say is, the kind of effort that you're putting in, if you do not get the return in terms of that recognition of the B school, then I don't think it made a lot of sense for me. With respect to financing, so I think there is not much of a difference. There will be a slight difference, of course. So colleges like NMIMS roundabout have an expenditure of approximately 35 to 40 lakhs. But if you see an IIM ABC, you will find it somewhere between 26 to 28 lakhs. If you see an IIML, it would be 22. If you see new IIMs, it would be 19, 20. So with respect to financing, once you compare an IIM ABC versus a private B school, you will see that there is not a lot of difference in the finance cost. So if you want to go ahead with that, you can. This should not be a bar. So why did I not consider going abroad was that right now, if immediately post college, if I wanted to go abroad, I would have to do an MIM, which is a Masters in Management. I would not be eligible for an MBA from, let's say, a Wharton, Harvard, because that requires a certain amount of work experience. So either I could have waited for 3-4 years and then applied to all these top B schools in US, or I could have immediately done my MIM from certain good colleges in Europe, like for example HEC Paris or INSEAD. So again, I did not want to go abroad right now because of certain personal reasons. So I thought that if I am staying back in India, then it is the right time to do an MBA from India right now. So I'm not really sure if I am giving up on the opportunity to, let's say, someday go to Harvard or Wharton, because there are certain people who, even after doing an Indian MBA, work for a couple of years and then do an MBA abroad. So I think I have not completely closed the doors to that option for myself, and it is something that I may explore in the future. Coming to why did I not apply for ISB? So again, I had thought of applying to ISB when I was in my second year for the YLP program, but I felt that it's too early to apply for ISB right now because it ultimately is a 2-year deferred program. So I could have gone for the same program after 2 years. I was not losing anything in life per se. And the second point was that I was not very sure of whether I want to go to ISB. I wanted to try my hands at getting into an IIM before I apply for ISB. So in my head, I felt that if I get into IIM Ahmedabad, I will be happier as compared to getting into ISB. So it's a very human thing to go for option A first and then go for option B if option A does not work. So it was the same case for me as well. I decided to go for my option A, which was CAT, and in a hypothetical situation that it would not have worked, I would have gone for ISB. So for everyone who's watching this, I cleared my CA Intermediate Group 1 when I was in my second year in May 2023, and I gave my foundation very long back in first year itself. I honestly do not know what to say about this because my only rationale behind doing CA was that when I entered SR in my first year, I was not really sure of what career options are ahead. So being from Calcutta, being from a very Marwadi family, CA is something that is the go-to option for everyone. Beta CA kar lo. So that is something that I also heard and I went ahead with that. But during these 3 years of SR, I realized that this is not something that really excites me, not something that I really want to build a career in. But I've seen a lot of people, talk to a lot of people, know a lot of people who did their CA and then went on to do an MBA. A lot of people are from SRCC as well. So I think that trajectory makes sense for those who genuinely have an affinity towards the kind of curriculum that CA holds, but also have an affinity to the kind of experience that an MBA would give. Because what happens is CA versus MBA, these are like two extreme poles. One is north and one is south. MBA is an entirely residential program, diverse classrooms, very different case-based teaching style. Whereas the CA has more like, you can study on your own, people take a lot of home lectures, so not that opportunity to interact with a lot of people. So I think a mixture is good in terms of the kind of experiences you get, because two very different experiences. But only go for it if you're prepared to put in this kind of rigor, because 3 years of CA plus 2 years of MBA, that makes it 5 years of education. So only go ahead if you think that you can sustain yourself for 5 years in this entire process. I did not feel I would be able to do it post 2 years of an MBA or doing CA and then doing an MBA. So I think I got the opportunity to go into IIM Bangalore now, and all I want to do is seize it. So I think I decided to do CFA because I really had an interest in finance. My internship was in VC and I had a PPO from them, so I know I was going to join a venture capital. So I think having more knowledge into finance will really help me, because my degree, which is BCom, does not give me a lot of leverage in that aspect. So that was one reason why I decided to go ahead with CFA. I gave CFA level 1 in February this year. I received my results and I cleared it. But the point is that it was a very difficult time for me, because February, March were the months when I was having my best interviews, ABC, and February was the month when I was also appearing for CFA. So I think for someone who knows that they want to do an MBA, I would not suggest you to make these two things overlap, because it gets extremely difficult. But if you have an interest in finance, and if you feel that this is something that you really want to explore as a career option post MBA, I strongly encourage you to go ahead for CFA L1, because I think that the kind of knowledge that CFA L1 gave me also helped me answer finance questions in interviews. Because it's very common for interviewers to ask you as to what field you are looking for, and you can be very diplomatic and say that I am still exploring and I want to use my MBA as a medium. But some interviewers will ultimately get to the question. So I used to say finance when those questions were asked to me. And I think if not for CFA, I would not have been able to answer those questions as confidently as I did in my interviews. So if you also feel that you resonate with this kind of mindset, then I think CFA might be for you. So a message to everyone who's watching this, I only have 2 things to say. One, I read somewhere that some things, they are just written in the stars. And I did not get the meaning of this back then. But today I understand what it means. You might not know it today, but some things are written in the stars, as in you get what you are meant to get, what you deserve, what the destiny has in store for you. So I was extremely disheartened once I did not get into Ahmedabad, because for every B school aspirant, that is the place to be. But when I got into IIM Bangalore, which is literally the place to be, I could not imagine. I was extremely happy, because IMB is a wonderful school to be at. And those 10 days between IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore's results, those 10 days were extremely difficult for me because I did not know how to accept the reality. But all I need to say is maybe this year, I hope not, but maybe this year if you're not able to make it to your dream B school, do not be worried. You do not know if next year you will get into Ahmedabad. You never know. This year you might feel that you did not get into this so-and-so IIM or so-and-so private B school and this is the end of the world and you don't know what to do. But trust me, it will all make sense. I know people who could not convert any of their best interview calls in year 1, but they reached ABC or LKI in year 2, which was their dream B school, irrespective of whatever it may be for you. So this is one thing. The second thing is that throughout the process, irrespective of whether you are starting 1.5 years before, 1 year before, or 6 months or 4 months before like me, it does not matter. All that matters is consistency. So CAT is not an exam where you can start 1 month before and be like, I will study for 10 hours a day and I will put in 300, 400 hours of efforts and I will rock the exam. It does not work like that. I have never studied 10 hours myself. The max I could do any day was 4 hours because the kind of mental pressure that CAT puts on your head, it is not possible to go throughout the day and be able to sustain that way. So all I want to say is, if you're starting early, do not feel that I have started so early, I already have an edge, because you never have an edge, point number 1. Point number 2, consistency is your edge. So if you are being consistent, if you are putting in the requisite amount of hard work, so it is but obvious that someone who is starting 1 year before will need to put lesser hours per week than someone who is starting 4 months before. It's very obvious. But the only point is that you have to be very consistent in the process so that you don't lose track of it, because once you break the flow of things, let's say that you studied for 2 months and then you completely left it for 2 months and then you again get back to CAT, the 2 months of efforts that you have put in will be an absolute waste, trust me. So you cannot break the flow of things because you will not remember from where to start again.